I wanted to give you an update on some of the things that are being planned around our vision. Now, on your way in this morning, you should have received two things. You should have received an excerpt of the CBCGB annual report, that is Crossbridge's portion of it, and also this two-sided handouts. And if you weren't able to grab one, that's okay. I think we have a couple volunteers in the aisles who can get one to you. So if you want to do them a favor and raise your hand or wave them down, they can walk over and hand you one. Now, for the full annual church report, you can scan the QR code on the back or go to the link directly. But I wanted to spend some time this morning to talk about this handout. You might remember that about a year ago in the fall, we preached through our sermon series, This Is Us, Discovering Our Crossbridge DNA. And that covered all the things on this front side of the handout. 4 sides that capture who we are and frames our future. Our mission, our motives, or that is our core values, our marks, our map. This is what we call our vision frame. And then in January, I talked at a very high level about this vision over the next 5 years of raising up bridge builders in line with our name, Crossbridge, and our mission, bridging cultures to build a family in Christ. Since then, a lot of work has been put into filling out the details. We put together a vision and strategy team that would work with myself and Pastor Pat. We reached out to Oxano, which is this group that works with churches on vision clarity and execution. And what we came up with is what we call this 1-3-1-3. Literally a 1-3-1-3. 8 boxes, that is this chart-like visionary planning tool, and that includes both the picture of where God is taking us and some of the necessary steps to get there. And it's shown over 4 different time horizons. Some churches have a vision without a plan, and others might have an action plan on paper with no vision. But what we find is that vision without execution is a daydream, and execution without vision is a nightmare. And so let's break down this 1-3-1-3 together. If you follow with me up at the very top, over the next 5 years, by God's grace, Crossbridge will become a home where all its members together lead their lives intentionally as bridge builders to bring people to Christ. We want to see hundreds of bridges connecting people to Christ within Crossbridge, across CBCGB, and among our communities. And these are the bridges that many of us are familiar with because we've been doing it for most of our lives. Bridges that span generational and ethnic, maybe even socio-economic and secular cultures with the gospel. But in order to get there, Crossbridge, we have to undergo a renovation of sorts of our culture, of our practices, our structure to be in a sustainable position for raising up bridge builders. And this point about renovation is probably the most important connective tissue that is tying what is up top with everything down below. Because if we don't get the connection, then it's not going to make sense. And we will have failure to launch. But if we look at this 1-3-1-3, and we could look at it, and we might be thinking, well, where's the actual bridge building? Right? Let's go build some bridges right now. Why aren't we starting right now? This is why. When we arrived at this vision of raising up bridge builders, there were 3 fundamental challenges that came up that stood in our way of achieving this vision. First, the challenge of burning out. We spread ourselves too thin. We trust sometimes more in ourselves than in God himself sometimes. And so, how can we effectively and sustainably be a bridge to others and bring them to God unless we are deep in relationship with him ourselves? Second, the challenge of where to help our members grow. Now, I know for some of us, you're already bridging cultures. Right? You're doing it in your own spaces, and that's awesome. And you might be like, I'm ready. Let's go. Just tell me where and who and point me in the right direction. But this is also first about raising up bridge builders and the places within Crossbridge to do that. It's not just going to be this hour and 15 time that we have together once a week. It's not going to be effective. Because at the end of 5 years, if the only ones who are building bridges are the same ones who are already doing it today and don't need a 1313 for them to do it, then we would have failed, even if it might look like we succeeded. The third challenge, the challenge of running a three-legged race. We're a fairly big church with a lot of ministries. If you scan this QR code, it would take you to a 43-page annual report. CB is only 3 pages of that. Right? There's a lot of needs across CBCGB, and we as Crossbridge, we want to meet those needs, right? We want to bridge and we want to help, and we're probably in a good position to do that. But also at the same time, if we don't kind of figure out a way to a better way of running together, then Crossbridge will always be reacting towards the next need and relegating our vision to an afterthought. And so, over the next 2 to 3 years, there are 3 background strategies that will move us in this direction of raising up bridge builders. The first box is multi-congregational partnerships. In Crossbridge, again, we're not our own church. We are one congregation of CBCGB alongside Chinese ministry, city outreach ministry, youth, and children, right? We are interdependent. And so this box is aiming to tackle some of the organizational challenges that come with the blessings of being a multi-congregational, multi-generational church. And so in a sense, we want to plow the field and prepare the soil from a leadership and organizational level so that the ground is fertile for all of us to be bridge building across CBCGB. What does that mean exactly? Well, it means that in some of these bodies of leadership, like the BOE and the BOD, the elders and deacons, we aim to have proper representation across congregations in order to work together to address issues facing the whole church and issues that would definitely impact us as Crossbridge. The second box is group-driven growth. We want to engage every member of CB to grow spiritually with the fellow brothers and sisters in small groups. And these groups are a vital place in raising up bridge builders. The third box is Sabbath culture. We want to cultivate within CB a culture of Sabbath rest in and with God. Right? It's not rest in and of itself, but a resting in God to trust Him as Lord, to live as His beloved children. And so we want to equip and enable our members to prioritize personal, and not just personal, but communal, us together, Sabbath with God through these 4 disciplines of stop, rest, delight, and worship. And as we begin this 5-year journey of God transforming all of us collectively and individually into bridge builders, it's imperative that we strive to deepen our dependence on God and not on ourselves. Because without a culture of resting in and with God, you might as well take a pen and cross out bridge builders and write raising up burnt out bystanders. Because that's what's going to happen. Together, this set of 3 strategies will take us halfway there, right? So that the next set will be more about building bridges in a way that is healthy and effective and long-lasting. Within CB, across CBCGB, and even among our communities. Now, if these are our 3 strategies, then our 1-year mid-ground focus is threefold. A step forward for each of our strategies, a 3P focus, if you will. Plant seeds for congregational partnerships at this organizational leadership level, plug people into a group on this member level, and then prioritize rest in God for all of us. And that ladders down to our foreground initiatives. Right, 3 initiatives every semester that will continue to move us up and forward in this 1313. And so we are initiating conversations with CBCGB leadership around organizational health and partnerships. We are working on ways for people to find a group to join or to create one themselves under Pat's leadership, or for those already in a group to seek those who are not plugged in. We also held our annual CB retreat earlier in September with a Sabbath theme, Rhythms of Rest. And so there may be, more things happening. There are a lot of things happening other than this one initiative in this one box, right? We're not restricted to it, but we wanted to make sure that we at least communicated and accomplished one important thing each semester. In other words, we wanted our execution to be a bullet and not a buckshot. Otherwise, it's very easy to aim for everything and hit nothing. And so in the past 10 minutes or so, I know it's a lot to digest, might be feeling like, drinking from a fire hose, and I promise it won't be another 9 months before you get an update. But there are two things I'm going to ask you to do this morning. First, pray. And we don't want to do any of this without God's leading. And some of what we're actually trying to do, endeavoring to do, is ambitious and hard. Becoming bridge builders is hard. So one thing to pray about. God, what changes in my heart and life do you desire to make this vision a reality? Second, share. Take this handout with you. Take it home, look over it again, engage with it, memorize it if you want to. Come talk to me, or maybe be that person who awkwardly brings it up over lunch after service today. What do you guys think about this? Is he crazy? I don't know. One thing to ask each other. What resonates most with you from this 1313? Why? Because vision transfers through people, not paper, and not this PowerPoint presentation. Because if we're first successful in raising up bridge builders, it'll be because of God, and it'll be because each one of us owned it, contributed to it, engaged with it. Not because we had this piece of paper. But this paper does serve as a visual aid for us to do those two things, which I encourage you, I ask you to do. So take this and use it to pray about it, and use it to talk about it. And let's go from there together. Thank you.